The GPO topic, right? Global process ownership. You all know something about this. Some of you are active participants, and some of you are in organizations looking at this discussion. I'm very pleased to have this fine, august group. And hang on a second, better go back. I've got this august panel, experts. Just like to introduce them all. And if you could just introduce yourself, your job role, and also a little bit about your company, whether you're in high value, low volume, or high volume, low value, because it does affect a lot of stuff in order to cash. So, do you want to start at the far end and come right, Thomas?
Sure, absolutely. Hello, my name is Thomas Burian, and I'm Global Service Head responsible for O2C in Mann & Hummel, which is an automotive supplier. Supplying filtration, mainly automotive, but we're now getting into different industries as well. So we have combination of all that you mentioned. In our case, O2C and the GPO, I think I've been through various setups where the GPO was very strategic. As well as then moving more into tactical. So and I think for me really the GPO topic is always changing.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. Elena?
Yeah, so hello, I'm Elena Dvornichenko. I'm leading global credit and collections team in CMXII company, and also I'm a cash manager for Geo. So our company provides IT solutions for air industry, namely airports, airlines, handlers, but not only limited to that, also to the borders of international governments, such organizations such as the United Nations, etc. And basically, we also been through different setups. Current one, which is working pretty well, is that we have the GPO office with extended functions supporting the policies, procedures, trainings, reporting, etc. And GOR-based teams which are responsible for the credits and collections, but also the dispute management, supported from the global. Yeah.
And you're a relatively high value, low volume business, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Anna?
Hello, my name is Anna Soshin, and I'm from the Grass Valley. I'm a global finance manager responsible for the accounts receivable globally. Grass Valley, we are a leader in the broadcasting industry, so we provide complex end-to-end solutions for our customers. We provide them hardware, but also software, including cloud solutions. And the GPO for me, it's a challenge, I would say. We're in the middle of transformation, as Thomas said, plenty of steps ahead of us, but also I would say that it's all about the passion, about the dedication, and about the people. That you have to have the right people in the right place, and that's what GPO for me would be.
And your business, Grass Valley, that's again relatively high value, relatively low volume business. Yep. Okay, thanks. Daniel.
All right, so hello everyone, my name is Daniel Carries. I am with Carrier Company, is a HVAC business. So for those who don't know, HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. It is a relatively high value, lower volume company. Quite large, lots of changes happening there, over 55,000 employees globally. And recently I've been moved to this team of GPO, Global Process Owner there. And the GPO, as we know, it has changed a lot in the last 2 months only. So it's a really good opportunity to take over many of the points actually I've been discussing here.
Thank you all. So we've got a wide range of experience here, and so it's going to be a good discussion. And we're going to make you work as well. This isn't going to be just listening, you're going to have to do some work. So don't run for the doors. We need you to do some real work. And so we've introduced ourselves. I haven't introduced myself, but I'm Dan. But that's all you need to know. I'm going to talk a little bit about the context of global process ownership, because it's one of those phrases that's used a lot. But actually, if you ask a few people what it means, you actually get a different answer. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to ask a few additional comments from our expert panel. And then we're going to have group discussions here on 3 topics. We're going to ask you to discuss in groups. So we're going to break you into groups of about 10 or 15, have a discussion, so you're going to have to talk to people you might not even know. And then what we're going to do is we are going to talk to you, and we're going to take the key feedback from each group, going to get it on that, and then we're going to type it up, and you'll get it as part of your end of conference proceedings. So can't say fairer than that. 2 for the price of 1. And then we'll have a few conclusions at the end. So this is some research which kind of surprised me. But when you think about global processes, and Martin talked a bit about this idea of the end-to-end process cycle, senior executives in the world, and this is by the Shared Services and Outsourcing Network, so it's focused on big companies running global business services, global shared services. 87% of them say end-to-end process integration is a top priority for 2023 and 2024. That means making the end-to-end value stream work better together. Now that is important to all of us because we've got to know our role in that. So that kind of surprised me how big it is, because normally in these surveys it all sort of hangs around about the 50% mark. And then they did a deeper survey about what are the global process ownership domains most popular, or how they're being rolled out. And you can see, so the green is the people who are operating global process ownership for these processes. So you've got procure to pay, record to report, order to cash, hire to retire, and a technology, but I find that one a little bit odd, but anyway. What's interesting is by far the most common process for a GPO is procure to pay. Who knows why that is? But in order to cash, 52% of organizations say they have GPOs today, and about 25% say they're planning to. So that's kind of interesting data to work with, because if you're not already doing global process ownership, it's probably going to be a discussion over the next year. So Martin's touched on this, but this whole thing about why do you worry about end-to-end processes, right? Now we learnt about, I don't know how long, 50 years ago, in the manufacturing industry, particularly in the automotive industry in Japan, they worked out a long time ago that it's absolutely pointless having people making car doors and not worrying about the rest of the car, because they end up with too many doors and not enough gearboxes, and the whole thing was a mess, right? So they decided to break down the silos of manufacturing and say, let's have an end-to-end cycle, which is much more efficient, produced a higher quality product, and was lower cost. So what's not to like about that? But the funny thing is, after all these years, whilst we understand that in a manufacturing context, we're not very good at it in the softer processes of the ones that we work in, which is kind of interesting because it's the same problem, right? So the idea of breaking down the barriers, breaking down these silos, is the fact that if you just work in individual silos, if we're just focusing just on collections, we're missing some broader issues which are caused by sales and marketing, caused by a relationship with the customer. If we can get an end-to-end cycle about the whole point of delivering value to our customers, it makes life a lot more effective. So these are some of the byproducts. You get performance measures, KPIs, that somebody's KPI, achieving one KPI early in the cycle has a diametrically opposite effect at the other end of the cycle, so completely counterproductive. And I'm sure everyone's seen some of that. So, and there's a comment here about the kind of the father of quality. So, you know, you build quality in to the end-to-end cycle, you're going to get a lower cost, better result out. So hopefully that's pretty self-evident. And again, global process ownership is a term that's misunderstood often. But I would argue, and I've noticed this myself, is we talk about processes and we all nod, right? If I guarantee you, if you go back to your offices and ask 10 different people, what do you mean by business process? You'll get 11 different answers. And it will scare you. You go, really? I thought we're all meant to be doing the same thing here. And these are some of the differences. People think, oh, it's the steps through the ERP system, or it's the policies we have. But it's a whole bunch of things. So, and of course, customer to cash or demand to cash, that's the end-to-end cycle. So we worry here a lot about settlement, which is collections, and we worry about credit as well. But going right up to the front, we know a lot of the problems in our world are caused by sales, contracts, orders, all of these things up on the left-hand side. And if we've got a better view across the whole thing, and make it more aligned, we end up with a better result, better customer relationship, a more efficient process, better DSO. Everyone's a winner. So, question for you. This is just a show of hands. This isn't any real work. But in our world, there's different companies have different terms for the end-to-end process. Some people call it demand to cash. There are a few companies using that phrase right from the very front end. Some people say credit to cash, some people say order to cash, and some people it's invoice to cash. But irrespective of which one it is, can you just put a show of hands to say, in your organization, do you have global processes in place, global process owners in place today? Just put your hand up. That's only about 15%. Put more hands up. Put 2 hands up if you're doing it. That makes it look better. Right, so that means probably 80% of you have got this coming down the track at you. So there's 15, 20% of you are already doing this and can see what's going on. The rest of you are going to see this because I guarantee this is going on in every major company. So worth thinking about. Right, the second question for you is, there's actually 3 questions here. So, one of the challenges with global process ownership is people use this phrase and they assume that one global process owner is doing the same job as another one. And the big differences are, in fact, I would say the majority of global process owners today are only responsible for the future state of the process. They're not responsible for running it today. They're responsible for designing what it's going to look like in a year, 2 years, 3 years' time, which obviously has some limitations and you could argue isn't very end-to-end integrated itself. And others have just the responsibility for the as-is process, like today's credit to cash process and the performance measures associated with it. And some have both. So hopefully that makes sense. So of the people who have global process owners in place for invoice to cash, credit to cash, demand to cash, order to cash, put your hand up if the global process owners are responsible for today's operations, today's performance, and making it better for tomorrow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So, and then put your hand up if your global process owner is responsible purely for today's operations, and it's continuous improvement, but today's operations, global process owner responsible for just current operations. No one? Put your hand up a bit higher if you are. Okay, so none of you here. And then if your global process owners are only responsible for the future design of the process. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so that kind of reflects what we just talked about. More of the people with global process owners, more have global process owners responsible purely for the future process than have responsibility both for the future and the current, and none are responsible just for the current. So that's kind of a little bit of introduction. So it's about creating overall business effectiveness. So before we get into the discussion, I'd just like each of our panel just to share a thought maybe about an observation or piece of advice from your experience as global process owners and observing the process as it works, the role. Just give us a little thought from your world. Thomas.
Yeah, no, I would sort of come back to what I mentioned initially, and I think the GPO, the setup, I think it's an evolution. I think what you might start with a few years back, it's not what you're going to need in 2 years, right? So it's evolution. In our case, it went from really sort of one of the top executives. Every now and then putting a GPO head on, deciding on strategic topics, and then letting go. That worked for a while, but then we moved into sort of a transformation phase, preparing for SAP S/4HANA specifically, and we needed more tactical, operational GPO. So that's where we are right now, and the strategic decisions we've sort of I would say outsourced to what we call a process council, So completely different setup, right?
And who's on the process council? What roles?
So the various stakeholders will be represented on a process council.
All the functional leaders?
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, okay, thank you. Elena, your thoughts?
In our company, we trust that the process, the policy exists to protect the company, first place, but also to protect the customer, because with the wrong process, you can cause damage to both sides, right? So we need to understand deeply the consequences of the full line, how your service is affecting the customer operations. We are in high tech, and what would be the actions if this process is not followed. So one of the main tasks is basically to stay connected with all the parts of the business, also with the teams in place, and to make sure that this is understood, this is adopted, this is followed through that. And of course, as Thomas mentioned, we evaluate the processes on a regular basis to remain relevant, connected in this quickly changing world.
Okay, thank you. Anna, your view?
I would agree both with Thomas and Elena. So this is a process, this is a transformation that could be challenging, but we always have to try to change the perspective from like the challenges to the opportunities that we can see. So we are at the, I would say that my company and my team, we are in a transformation mode right now. We are focused. We're very focused on the automations and solutions like this. But what is the biggest challenge for me as a GPO and as a credit manager in general? It's all about the balance. Because when you are the credit manager, from one perspective, you have to think about the company that you work for, the organization, the people that you have in the company. But on the other side, you have also always customers. So the decisions that you are making, they should be very balanced, just not to lose the track of the goal at the end.
Great, thanks. And Daniel, your views?
Yeah, I kind of follow the same line of thought as well. And then I think what is very important, although we say GPO, right, so global process owner, we really need to put people first, and at the same time understand well why things are done the way they are, especially when you have, for instance, the case which is in carrots. There's a lot of growth through acquisition, so there's a lot of old mentality versus new ways of doing things. So you constantly have this clash. So I think the biggest role of GPO is really understanding why things are done the way they are and have this contact and trust the people, and then be focused on the prioritization, be focused on the things that actually will bring value to them. And then you gain further trust from them. Because if you're basically sitting there in a kind of a pedestal sort of thing, say, this is the way it should be, this is the way we believe it should be, but you don't understand the basics, then you risk actually coming to the point where nobody will be listening to you, and then you have failure.
That's a great point. So it's not, the whole point here is it's not a mechanical process. It really is about getting the best out of the team and also engaging with all the stakeholders across that end-to-end cycle, which is definitely a people problem. So we're now going to have a discussion. So what I want you to do, and everyone's got to be involved in this, right? Whether you do global process ownership or not. In each segment, if you want to turn around, talk to your colleagues, and then group there, and probably this is 2 groups, just have a chat, and then a group, or maybe 2, you decide how many, but you want to have 10 people in the group so you can get different perspectives. So I want to have a conversation for about 10 minutes, no, probably 8 minutes, and given what you know already about global process ownership in your own organization and what the opportunities are and what you've heard from our expert panel, is thinking about the end-to-end process that we might want to have ownership over, which is obviously the whole credit and collections end-to-end process, which you might call credit to cash, you might call invoice to cash, or you might call it demand to cash. What does good look like for that process? Not just for collections, for the end-to-end process, what does good look like? And believe me, that's one of the hardest questions in business to answer. So you might think, well, it's obvious, right? We just want a low DSO. But have a think about it, because it isn't quite as obvious as that. So I want you to have those conversations, and our experts are going to come and kind of cajole you and encourage you to have a good conversation. So you're going to have to talk to each other. So As I say, it says 7 minutes there, so we'll do it 7 minutes. At the end, we're going to ask you for your feedback. We're going to get it on there, and you're going to do 3 of these, and you're going to get it all afterwards, so you'll be able to go away with something, apart from a hangover, which you'll have tomorrow. So, but the hangover doesn't last forever, but these notes will. Right? So that's good news. So if you could just start the conversation now. So what does good look like in terms of the whole process? What does, how would you know that you've got a great end-to-end process for demand to cash, credit to cash? Let's say credit to cash is the simplest way of looking at it. So you're going to have to look at each other to talk. So down to you. I break into some groups, 10, 15, 20 people. Okay, if you could bring your conversations to a conclusion, we're going to capture the results. You do? You need to nominate, oh yes, you need to nominate someone to give us the feedback, right? Okay, this looks like a very active group. They're standing up, they're putting a lot of energy into it, so they must have something to say, right? So who's the speaker for this group? Who's the... Right, so what does good look like for the end-to-end process for credit to cash for you guys?
So, harmonized process.
A harmonized process.
Plus the process description.
Sorry?
Plus process description. So
Oh,
it's also included in the
okay.
material.
With process description.
Yes.
Anything else?
Process map.
Process map.
Refreshment training. That's the maintenance part.
Okay. So a process maintenance plan almost.
Maintenance plan.
Yep.
Yes. And the newcomer training, I would say. Because all the newcomers should be trained as well, based on the harmonized process description.
Training.
Yes, training.
And what about performance? Is there any particular performance measures you talked about you thought were really important across the whole piece?
During the process.
Yeah, for the whole, if you said the whole credit to cash, what would be the things that matter? So, I mean, obviously we are all very focused on DSO and things like that, but the customer as well, the customer being happy. But you've got a good, that's a pretty good thing. So we got harmonized process, thank you this group. We've got harmonized process with process description, process maps, a process maintenance plan, and training. Who else wants to talk? Come on, let's take a group over there, far over here. What did you decide were what does good look like for credit and collections?
We had a bit of a side discussions, but what we discussed, part of it is already here.
Yep.
But then straightforward decision-making process.
Decision-making, right. A straightforward decision-making, sort of transparent and simple. Or straightforward, I guess, is a better way of saying that.
And, okay.
Can you turn the mic on, please? Oh. Uh-huh.
Okay, one, I still... Okay, I can speak
You can
closer
speak at me. Yeah, shout into mine.
Yeah, so of course we discussed quite a lot about seamless customer experience.
Brilliant. Seamless customer experience.
And that can be understood in many, many different ways. But it should be easy for a customer to place an order, easy to...
So easy to understand, easy to execute for the customer.
And get an invoice and...
Yeah, and so get to order, invoice, and pay, easy to understand, and order, invoice, and pay, and obviously get the products or services. Great.
I'm missing one point now.
What was the important thing you said?
We talked about the importance of the right credit management decisions again.
Credit management policy and decisions.
Yes. If your credit decisions are right, you will not have problems with collections then afterwards.
Okay. Right credit decisions. Okay. Thank you. Right. So we've got a combination here of characteristics about the process itself and characteristics about the result on the customer. So who wants to add something to this? Did anybody have a different? Hi.
I would like also to add from our group clarity and on the process.
Clarity on the process. So clarity and understanding. Don't worry, you won't be able to read this, but believe me, I can. I'm the only person that can read my handwriting. I should be in the Secret Service, shouldn't I, really? Be brilliant.
Communication from between all the departments that are part and all the leads that are part.
Right. So clear end-to-end communication.
I'll say inclusion in the communication of the
Of both leaders and participants across the process. Thank you. Any more?
We focused on more the end
Good.
process, what we want.
Yeah, cool.
But I'm staying here because I remember everything Ron said. We want on-time and consistent invoicing, so there are no issues along the way. The customer gets their invoice and it is paid on time.
It's on-time and consistent invoicing that's right.
Yeah, and if something goes wrong, there's on-time and consistent follow-ups. So
Right.
the customer knows what to expect. We want quality measurements in place within our teams so that we know the qualitative result that is provided to our customers. We want full transparency throughout the chain between our customers and internal departments. And if something does go wrong, there is full root cause analysis performed along the way.
Yeah, that's great, because we talked about when we had the problems. Yeah,
And-
so root cause analysis of any problems.
And lastly, targets. We discussed two different targets. One being the obvious one, cash, and another one, first time right measurements throughout the full chain of OTC or whatever departments you have, but that there's one measurement for all teams, and that
common measures, brilliant.
measure, yeah. Yeah, and standardization of processes.
Right, and we got that up here. Great.
Good.
Excellent. Your targets, cash and first time right, and obviously kind of happy customers would be pretty good as well, wouldn't it?
Oh, there we go. And somebody's just shouted in my ear. Customer satisfaction.
That's it?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. We covered a lot of ground. Any final points? Yes, sir?
Okay.
Well caught.
Where is it? Okay, yeah, we as a group agreed about 3 prerequisites of building the good OTC process end-to-end. The first was that if the process shall be built as a one process end-to-end, so then process owner shall have the blessing from the top of the company to define and implement the OTC process end-to-end regardless in which part of the organization it is. If it is centralized or decentralized. Centralized in shared services, decentralized in 100 countries, wherever, okay? So,
yes, okay.
The second was that after this blessing is given, so there is a need to build a set of clear policies defining the process, how it should look like for the people in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And the last thing was to maximum possible extent, of course it cannot be done 100%, but to maximum possible extent to cover the process end-to-end by one system. So.
Ah, right, single system, as far as possible. Excellent. Thank you. Right, I'm conscious of time, so we're going to move on to the next question. So if anybody, one more, if there's anything we've missed, you can't read what I've written down. When you read it, when it comes to you, you'll say, ah, that's what he meant. Right, because I can read that, you'd be surprised. Right, so we're going to move to the next one, unless somebody's got a burning need. So now I've got to remember what I did with the thing. There we go, that's it. Right, that's the first discussion. Right, next one is, you all work in large, complex organizations, and getting things done is very hard, as you know. As we say, getting shit done can be very difficult. So, how does the GPO manage and execute getting things done in your complex global organization? We've talked about the characteristics, so you're talking across functions, across stakeholders, across locations. How do you get stuff done in that environment? So when you go back to your groups and talk about what does it take to get stuff done in a large, complex organization where you're not just in your location, you've got to make it happen consistently across the world, right? So, think about that, get back to your groups, you're back on it, another 7 minutes. So you thought it'd be easy, but it's going to be hard, you'd be sweating by the end of this. Okay, if you can bring your conversations to a close, we've got one more of these to do as well. So I'm going to ask, one of the groups didn't speak last time, so this group here, we've got a microphone somewhere, anybody? Here. Okay, this group didn't speak last time, so what's your feedback here? Right.
I'm sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry. You had it's a good discussion.
We were still actually in the middle of discussion. We didn't finish yet.
Well, the trouble is it'll go on forever if I have to stop it at some point.
Think,
so what ideas came up?
Part of it was the idea is that we actually need to have a clear problem statement, what we try to...
Sorry, can you be... Sorry, we're just trying to get the feedback here. So you need a clear problem statement.
Well, getting things done are two things, right? You have your daily operations, so we're parking daily operations. We have a problem or a situation where we think we need to improve. That can be cash, DSO, goals, whatever metrics we want to implement. And then, you do your measurement, you do your root cause analysis from that angle, you analyze, and then you come to an idea, what are the solutions we could potentially implement.
Okay, so clear problem identification, measurements, and solution options.
Small items you can fix yourself or within the team, and if you need money, budget, resources, IT, it's a different topic, right?
Yeah, okay, so, and then access to resources as necessary. Okay. Who else, which other group have some things you'd like to add to this? So what does it take to manage getting stuff done for the global president or for anybody else in a large, complex organization, often global? I heard some...
We'll go over here if that's all right.
Coming in. Yep.
So in a kind of a really large global organization, it's very difficult. You're across the globe, you're across multiple countries. So first off, you have to have a strategy, is how am I going to deploy this change? And you need to be aligned. Is it going to be a big bang? Are we going to do it all in one go? Is it going to be rolled out through, region by region, TB by TB? Are you going to pick the most trickiest one where you've got most of the issues, so then you can employ learning in your future deployments and make them more efficient as you go along? And the biggest thing about doing any kind of change in a process or implementing a new process is the change management.
Yep.
So having your OCM in line and agreed with the messaging that you're sending is really important. And having an alignment with your operations team leads or managers or vice presidents is really key as well, because GPOs have the perfect world where, you know, you're fixing a car, and I'll use the analogy that it's in the garage and it's stationary, you can fix it, you can put the best fix on it ever. But when you're trying to deliver in operations at the same time as introducing a change, your car's going at 90 miles an hour and you're still trying to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, that kind of alignment is really good.
You talked about alignment, and I overheard a conversation over here, somebody said relationships, because you've got, I think, was it this group? Relationships and hearts and minds. If you don't have the hearts and minds of stakeholders across the organization, you can come up with the best idea, you'll never go anywhere. So yeah, that's great. So changing the wheels on the car at speed. Relationships, hearts and minds across all stakeholders. Right, who else had some ideas? Yep.
So in our group there was a discussion whether the GPO should own the organization in the global process or not necessarily.
Right.
And we've seen good examples where it owns, and we actually concluded probably it's best if the GPO is an organization.
So ownership of the resources. I mean, interestingly enough, this is just personal experience, but sometimes we tend to assume that if I owned all the resources, it'd be a lot easier. But the trouble is we're human. And it doesn't matter, because I think it's hard either way. But I get your point. So ownership of resources. Any other? Yeah. I thought you were going to throw it.
I'm so scared of this throwing.
Exactly.
We were also talking how to be effective in execution, right? Because you have the most beautiful plans on the paper. How do you make sure they are translated to operating companies on the ground, first of all? And then later on following up constantly to see if the plans are happening. What else did we cover?
Data.
Data.
Data, yes, data for measurement and improvement.
And data mining as one of the methodologies or tools, you know, with Celonis, for example, where you can see where your pain points are and how you benchmark the markets and so on and so on.
Great. Okay, thank you. I'm conscious of time. We've got to get on to the third question. Right, we're going to get on to the third question because otherwise we'll run out of time. So, the third question is, and this is about the human factor. So and forget about the single, but because you might come up with several ones, but what do you think is high priority leadership skill or capability or aptitude required by a global process owner in this environment? We talked about the complexity, global operations, taking the wheels off, changing the wheels while the car's driving at 100 kilometers an hour. What are the skills? I mean, ultimately, this is about what skills do we need to develop and what skills do we need to look for when we're hiring people. So what are the critical skills to make this happen for a global process owner to do the things we've talked about? So if you want to get back to your groups, don't worry, this is just the last discussion, and then you can have a rest. Be all right. So that's it. It's about skills and capabilities. What do we need? And we're going to be 5 minutes on this, because otherwise I'm going to be shot by Mark. Overall skills, that's fine. Don't just come up with one. That's probably not such a great idea, but whatever you come up with is good. Okay, we're going to have to move fast here, because I know we need coffee and tea and biscuits and cakes and stuff. So you've got a few skills out there already. So who wants to start off? What are some high priority skills we need to do this well? Yes, please.
Do I need a mic or not?
Microphone, please. Where's Chucky? Come on. And I'll just pop it over there. Come on then.
For the GPO, we need somebody who is able to analyze the data, decide, communicate well, and have a lot of charisma.
Data-oriented, decisive, charisma. Okay, if you can throw the Chucky over here, because someone was trying to. Come on, Mark, throw it. You told us to. If you take somebody's eye out.
Passion and resilience. And if you can only, so passion and resilience.
Passion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's really only one, then we would go for resilience.
Resilience, great one. Yeah, because there's an awful lot of no's on the way to yes. Okay, up here. Oh, no, you'll get there eventually. With the first, oh, Mark. Oh. I don't know. You must have done something to upset him. Here, down here. Sorry.
All right, so we agree. Resilience is, one of the things. We have to have a good decision-making ability, high resilience to change, to have a win-win mindset. To be good at stakeholder management.
Yes.
And I think that what we agreed on is that they have to have credibility.
Yes, credibility. Okay, great. Okay, back to the front. Hey, you got it eventually. You've forgotten what it was now, haven't you?
So, for me, and we have also discussed it within the group, a person that is able to build trust.
Right. Trusted.
Yes.
And ability to build. Yeah.
And also to have a vision for the future and to be able to share that within the team that is he or she is working with.
Great, thank you. Any more? Oh, one more, right. Oh, right. We have lawyers outside if you want to get anybody. Oh, well.
Yeah. We discussed that I think experience, someone coming from a background that's done this before, has credibility. A track record is if possible, is extremely valuable. I think we also discussed, as you just mentioned, the ability to visualize, to step back and have the broader perspective.
The big picture.
Yeah, to see the consequences of certain actions, implementations, the benefits and the positive side and the negative sides as well. So yeah.
Great, thank you. So it's a communicator, a great communicator you need as well. Okay, right. We got that's if you've got all that on your LinkedIn profile, you're worth a fortune, right? So you're fine. Right, we're going to quickly. Can I get the panel back up here, please? The experts, because you've got a few. Right, while you're coming up, I'm just going to give you a few observations. Yes, I'm going to ignore that for a minute. And a few observations just to think about. We talked about the fact that this is big, complex stuff. So this person has to be able to deal with ambiguity. You have to be able to the fact is you're only going to influence change. Even if you own all the resources, you can't actually control it, you can only influence it. So really strong influencing skills, ability to build a cross-functional coalition, because these end-to-end processes are cross-functional by definition. And this idea of this is changing the wheels at speed. Can you drive improvement today whilst designing the to be? And there is a natural tension, because everyone wants to throw technology at it, and we've heard, we know that, which is fine, but we've got to have a balance between process-driven improvement and technology-driven improvement, otherwise the technology won't work, and recognizing the impact of human behavior in the process. Doesn't matter what technology you've got, we're dependent on real people doing the job, so we've got to understand the habits and behaviors. So, my august panel, from what you've heard today, this afternoon, have you got any comments about what came out in your working groups?
Yep. So I can start. I think I was surprised first, sort of how many. I was thinking about the first question and what good looks like, and I thought we were gonna stop at DSO, and then obviously the list was quite long, and then the other groups chipped in, and it got even longer and even longer.
And different perspectives
exactly.
was interesting.
And
Some
very
people
different perspectives. Yeah. Really looking across the whole end to end. So it was, and there were a few bits and pieces that I would not think of myself for sure.
Great, thanks. Elena?
I was surprised how many organizations still doesn't have this function, but there is a need for that, obviously. presenting the challenges which people have, and basically they know what they expect, how it shall function. So it's maybe the way to discuss and to implement in the future.
And the great news is 80% of you don't have global process owners in your companies, but now you know all about it. So you can be the one and ask for a pay rise. How cool is that? Yeah. Anna.
So that's a very complex process in general, and that was very interesting to me because there are people from different backgrounds, and it was really interesting to hear what is the priority and what is the most important thing for everybody, and there are really different perspectives. So it was like inspiring for me as well. It was nice to share the same like issues and challenges, and 7 minutes is not enough to discuss those topics. Yeah.
Daniel, thanks.
I would say that I was inspired, and at the same time I was shocked in a way. So shocked in the sense of still, as we already stated, there's not so many GPO positions or look like GPO positions in the companies right now. But at the same time, I was very inspired to hear one of the cases there where we had a situation where the company has already gone through this, has all the framework, and jump a few years later that it is working very well. So this is something that actually proves the case and shows how it can be done and how it brings the efficiency up.
Excellent, thank you. A few hows. This is really touching on some of the things we talked about already. You've got to be influential. You've got to be able to drive change. You've got to be able to communicate what's possible. You've got to be accountable. I think it's one thing we didn't discuss in the skills, the aptitudes. I don't know in your organization, but a lot of organizations, there's a lot of people who like to talk about stuff, but they don't want to take ownership for the results. Because you've got to be accountable, say whether it's good or bad, it's down to me. And I think that's really important. Focused, prioritize focused, be present, be current with all of the stakeholders, consistency and curiosity, because nobody, even the best expert, doesn't know everything. So you've got to be curious, constantly curious. And this, as we've talked about these skills, all of the skills you put down, interestingly, are all EQ skills. They're not about how many PhDs you got, right? So that's worth thinking about. And I would make one final comment that in anything important, and global process ownership is clearly important, it isn't about some flash of inspiration. It isn't about some great silver bullet, some great magic. The skill, and if you speak to anybody who's been really successful in any discipline, whether it's athletics, business, music, whatever, this is true. It's about doing 1,000 things consistently every day and making sure you can do it. And sometimes, it feels like a grind, but you've got to keep doing it because it isn't just a big creative thing, it's an execution thing. So with that, and that, by the way, that is a very interesting book this guy wrote. He's actually a surgeon, he has nothing to do with business, but he worked out that making things happen as a top-end surgeon, again, it wasn't about the intellect, it was about the ability to execute consistently time and time and time again. Steve Fox yesterday showed that video of Steve Jobs. He was saying it's about the doers and thinkers. Being a thinker alone doesn't help. You've got to be a doer. So, with that, I'd like to thank the panel. Give them a big hand. They're loving it. Look at it, love it. God, look at that. Can you do it again? Look at it. Oh, come on. Yeah. Right. And thank you also. Give you a hand. Thank you. It's coffee time. Thanks very much.